Now. I'll just give it half a second and we will get started. Nobody has the excuse anymore, traffic, or I couldn't get to the building.
That's right. That's right.
Excuses, Teams crashed on me.
Or my Wi-Fi crashed, or my dog ate the Wi-Fi, the network cable.
There you go. Alrighty, folks. So let's get started here. Welcome to, I think we're week number 7 now. This is our first guest speaker. I'm always glad to have Jeremy Ramos as our first guest speaker. He has some really good messages for you. And I always look forward to what he has to say because he does change it every semester. So, Jeremy, it's all yours.
Awesome. Thank you.
Can we record the session, sir?
Beg your pardon?
Can we record the session?
So Jeremy is going to record. You go ahead and kick it off, Jeremy.
Yeah. I'm recording it. If you want to record locally, I don't know if the system lets you. You can do that. Obviously, that's fine. But I will share a link to the video as well. Okay?
Yes, sir. That's great.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for asking. So, good morning, everyone. My name's Jeremy Ramos, and I've done this for quite a while now. I think probably more than 15 years off and on. And my goal for being here is to really just share some of my lessons, some of my work experience, and hopefully give you guys some motivation and insights as to how to build your career, and more importantly, how to launch your career, right? What are some things that you might do now as you get started in your engineering career to get you on the right path, the right trajectory. So that's going to be the flavor of my presentation today. Before diving into it, I'll just say a little bit about my company. So my company's called Phiquest. We're sponsoring a project today, or this semester. I think the project is related to another company called PubTech, but we're the key sponsor of the project. And so with that, I'm just going to dive right in. So as I said, Phiquest, what we do is we partner mainly with people that are in the innovation space, typically leaders of innovation that are looking to develop new products, new business models, new ideas. And so a lot of that does involve engineering. But I think what you're going to see today is that it also involves personal growth and personal growth experiences for leaders and team members, and also strategy. Pretty much any successful product in the marketplace needs all three of these. You need the product and the technology. You need the right people and people that are willing to grow and develop themselves and their teams. And then you need the right strategy. So we bring all of that together under one umbrella and help innovators, project leads bring those products to market successfully. So I think you'll see a lot of what I'll be sharing today links into that area of personal growth. So again, my name's Jeremy, and here's my email. Feel free to reach out to me in the future, right? If I have a lot of students that are now successful engineers in their careers, and it's always nice to hear from you guys, hear how things are going. And also, if you've got questions for me as you go along, always happy to, take some time, meet, and talk about some key decisions and experiences you may encounter as you go along. So with that, ground rules, there's really only 2 rules today. The first one is we really want everyone to commit and being immersed in this experience. I know it can be distracting. You're out there in front of your computers. The dog is pulling on your pant leg. Maybe there's a baby in the background. Who knows, right? Try to just really not be distracted. Focus on this and be engaged throughout the presentation. As you participate in anything, whether it's today in this presentation or any a class, a lecture, manage your energy. I think that's super important. If you need to stand up, like I'm standing up right now, I feel like it projects better energy to you guys. So just keep that in mind as you go through this. If you feel like you're starting to get a little bit bogged down, a little tired, you may just want to stand up for a few minutes as you listen in and participate. So that's rule one, commit and stay engaged. Rule number two, throughout the whole program, I really want you to ask yourself the question, how am I going to apply these principles and skills in my own life, right? Whether it be at work, at home, with your teams. Really think about that. And you may even want to write this down. I want you to be aware, this is an activity center presentation. It's not just me talking, so you may want to have a notepad out or some way that you can take some notes, because later on you're going to need that. So you may want to start by writing that question down, right? How will I apply these principles and skills at work, at home, and with my own team? Okay, so first thing I'll say, just get it out of the way because it's obligatory, and Ken wants me to always share this. For crying out loud, please take notes. Again, back to what I said, have a notebook out or have your computer out. And you don't need to write down everything. I don't think we're asking you to generate a transcript of this, but when you hear something today that resonates with you, that hits you in the gut or the heart, write it down, right? And and use that in the future, right? Those are the things, those are the insights that I think help people break through and achieve the success that they're looking for in whatever it is that they're doing. So do take notes, please. So I like to kick this off with a quote. You'll never change your life until you change something you do daily. The secret of your success is found in your daily routine. John Maxwell. What does that mean? If you just stop and think about it, it talks about daily secret to success, right? It's those little things that you do. Not only do those small little decisions that you make every day have the ability to lead you to success, but they also have the ability to lead you to failure. And so it's about really focusing, not really so much on the big things, right? The big things are hard to ignore. It's those little decisions, whether it be a design decision on a project that you're working on, right? As an engineer, as you get into your careers, if you think about an engineering design or project, it involves thousands of little decisions, right, that all add up to the big picture. And all of those have an impact. And it goes the same for engineering design, software development, your own life, right? You're the engineers and architects of your life, your career, etc. So keep that in mind as we go through this presentation, is that it's those little daily decisions that will have the biggest impact in the long haul. And the better you get at building those routines on a daily basis to bias, right, towards a positive impact, that's what's going to make the difference in the long haul. So here's the first activity. So what I've done is I've written down kind of this algorithm that breaks down a daily routine, okay? And I've written it in JavaScript, pseudo code. And so I'd like for you guys just to take a minute. Hopefully you're able to read this on your screens. If not, you may need to zoom in a bit. And just read the algorithm. And then I'm just going to pick somebody, maybe a couple of people, and just ask your impressions of this. What does it mean? What are some things that stand out for you? So I'll just run the clock for about 2 minutes, let you kind of read this code and absorb it, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, you got about 40 seconds. Okay, so anybody want to volunteer to share your impressions, your thoughts about the code, and more importantly, the concept?
I volunteer.
Who's that? Please state your name.
My name is Dylan Bradford.
All right, Dylan, take it away.
Well, the first thing that I would like to talk about is the waste time on social media. That is, of course, a very important thing because it feels as though, at least from my generation's perspective, that we all waste time endlessly on social media, browsing through our articles, things, not getting anything done and not building up any meaningful relationships versus the build relationships, which is case 3, right? Where you're actually, I don't know, talking with your family, talking with your neighbors, like building, what's the word I'm looking for? Having a sense of, I wish to be successful for these people's sake and better not just my own life and lot, but also better their lot. Like I work endlessly just about every day for a chance that my family can have a better lot for themselves and maybe start my own family in the future. At least that's my perspective. That's why I'm doing this, and that's just my take on the code. In terms of the perform results for others myself, I don't normally think about myself at least, but I think about others a lot. But that's just my take. I'm sure others have different philosophical takes on the matter. I'd like to hear what y'all think.
Man, thank you so much. That's awesome. Somebody want to respond or add to that or share your own thoughts on it?
Yes, this is what is. That algorithm is just what we do and what we decide to do in life every since we wake up to go to bed and the next day and so forth. It can also be changed or add on to it. Depends on what we decided that it is matter. For example, the cases. That's the switch cases. We could add more, something that's relevant, or replace something that is no longer relevant. So basically, it is a decision what we make in life. It's a simple algorithm.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is just one take on this, right? And everyone's journey is different. That's one of the things I'll touch on later. Is we choose, we decide, and we, to a large extent, we do have a lot of control over our journey and what happens next and where we choose to make an impact. Let's see, we'll do one more. Anyone else have a burning desire to share your thoughts on this?
Hi, I'm Oleg. My name is Oleg, and I like the function is asynchronous, personally. That means that while you're still doing your execution of the daily routine, other stuff goes on. Like there's life passing through, and that you sometimes you gotta execute that function quick. Return that promise that you're gonna execute the routine a certain way. That also has to correspond with everybody else's daily routines or the state of the world right now. So that sort of thing.
That's great. I love that. It's so fascinating every time that I do this, just to see the little bits that people see and catch. It's every time I've done this, I I get a very different take on it. And thank you for the three of you for sharing that. I'm sorry, we've got limited time. I'd love to hear everyone's input. And in fact, if there's some ideas that you think I should hear about, feel free to email those to me, share them with me later, because I'd love to hear them. I get a lot from that feedback, as you'll see later as well in my presentation. Feedback is a big part of being successful, right? That whole idea of iterating and improving things over time. And with your feedback, I can make this better and have a bigger impact on other teams in the future. So I'm just going to go to by the way, all of that was fantastic feedback. I'm going to go to the next slide on this. And this kind of breaks down some of the static elements of the algorithm, right? I point out people, knowledge, materials, living things, and energy. Just to give you guys an idea of how important feedback is. For the longest time I had this and I didn't have living things in this set. And I added it based on feedback actually from my daughter who watched this at some point a few years back. So the key point here is that it's about resources, right? It's that and how you relate to resources, how you relate to people, knowledge, materials, living things, and energy, and how you put those into work in your lives in a positive way, right? You know, all of these relationships to these different elements, you can take them in a positive direction, negative direction, it's up to you, right? So you'll see later on, I reference back to this formula and this idea that, you know, these are the inputs. If you think of these as resources, and how you can put them to work in different positive ways, the possibilities are really endless. Okay, so let's keep going. So this is a quote that I can't even remember exactly who this person was, but it stuck with me. And it's, you know, if you want to be rich, quit now and go to finance or medical school. If you want to change the world, never stop becoming the best damn engineer you can become. And, you know, for me, yeah, you can obviously make a positive impact in any field, right? This isn't about, you know, engineering being better than finance and medicine. I think it's about the mindset. Right, it's about the mindset of the engineering field and engineers in general that, hey, we create things, right? We improve things. We you know, bring new things into the world, right? And so that you can bring that mindset to any field that you practice. But I think that was, like, for me, the one thing that stuck out is that, hey, if I become a great engineer, if I really fine tune my skills, hone in those skills, I can make a much bigger impact. So earlier in the algorithm, it talks about, you know, investing time in yourself. And so today, a big part of this is that. Think of today and this time we're spending together as an investment in yourselves and how you can become better in whatever it is that you're doing, right? And in particular, how can you become better skilled at using the knowledge and tools that you're learning in engineering? Because it's not enough to have the technical background. You gotta be able to develop skills to put that to work in the context of a team, of a company, of a business, or any other endeavor, right? So it's bringing all of that together, right? The people, the knowledge, the technology, the strategy for success. So, you know, I gave you a why earlier. Here's another why. I really believe that folks like you, really anyone, has infinite potential to make a positive impact. And I think we all are living, I mean, we've all lived through a pandemic this past year and few months. And you know, it's when humanity and us as individuals, something like a pandemic that's touched every single human being on the planet, right? Unless you're, you know, in an ice cave down in Antarctica, maybe. Right, and even then, you know, your family and relations, I'm sure, were impacted. So it's only when we see things like this that you start to recognize that we can all make a contribution, right? As simple as wearing a mask, as simple as, you know, having better hygiene, you know, or if you're in a position to be able to develop new technology. We saw a lot of innovation that came out around ventilators, right? Low-cost ventilation systems that were being made. people 3D printing masks, etc. I think this past year really created a perspective that it's hard for anyone not to understand the impact. I think we can all make a huge impact, and so part of the reason I'm here is to help give you guys some tools and some insights, and a mindset that you can make an impact. And recognizing that, I think is the first step, right? Recognizing you have that potential and that you can make that huge impact is part of what I'd like to do here today. So one of the driving questions is, how can I become the best damn engineer that I can, right? You're already doing it. You've committed to this career. So now let's talk about, how do you level up? So, and this definition, picked it right out of Wolfram Alpha. Engineer, noun, a person who uses scientific knowledge to solve practical problems. It's pretty plain vanilla, right? Part of the message and why I start with this definition is how important words are. I think later on you'll see. I'm going to ask you to write your own definition of engineering, because I wanted to make it your own, right? You've spent 4 years or however long, maybe 5, maybe less in college studying. Before that, you probably spent 12 plus years in K-12. For some of you, you may be coming back to college. I went through college with people that had bachelor's degrees, master's degrees in chemistry and biology and other areas, and were continuing education, right? But the bottom line is, you've made a commitment to go down this path. Now let's really think about, okay, how do you take that information and make it your own, right? This is the definition everybody has of engineer. Let's make it your own definition now. Let's make it you, uniquely you. And so the point is, the words you choose to describe yourself and your profession do have a profound effect. They impact what you believe, they impact how you behave, and they ultimately impact who you become. So really choosing carefully, how you think about yourself, how you think about the work that you do, and the words that you use to describe that. They're in your brain. There's feedback loops in your brain that impact how you perform on a day-to-day basis. So I guess all I'm saying is, be aware of that, be sensitive to it, and be careful with that inner voice and what it's telling you, right? If you believe that engineers are the geeks in the back room, that's what you'll be. You'll be a geek in the back room. If you think that engineers are people that are out there not just building things, but also sharing their ideas with others, doing things like what I'm doing here, etc., then your impact can have a much bigger footprint. So this slide it's all about the journey, right? So you're in this journey, you've opted to go down this career path, and the graph basically shows, hey, at what age do people make these great contributions to innovation, right? And it kind of peaks out somewhere in the late 30s, right? But really the key takeaway that I'd like for you to take from this is that you can make an impact at any age. It doesn't matter if you're a teenager, you're in your 20s, or you're in your 60s, 70s. At any life stage, if you create the right conditions, you can make a positive impact. So don't feel like, oh, I got to put in 5 years, 10 years to really, make a huge impact in innovation. You can do it at any time. It's about, having the right perspective, focusing on what matters most, and then going for it. And so right now you're in the stage I call the enthusiastic beginner. By the way, a lot of what's here is not my own ideas, obviously. I've, collected ideas from different places and put them together. So you may have seen a lot of this stuff in other places. But the bottom line is that you're starting out, you're very enthusiastic, you're a beginner, you're excited, you're about to go embark in this new profession. But over time, you may become a disillusioned learner. Right? You may get into a situation by your own choices, working on a team for a company or on a project that really doesn't feed your soul, really doesn't do anything that maybe give you a paycheck. And so part of what I'm hoping you take away from today is that you really have a choice to make, right? A lot of choices to make on where you go and where you make your contributions, and that can have a huge impact on what happens to you a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road. So be careful and choose carefully where you invest your time, who you're going to go give your best ideas and early years of your career to. The worst place you can end up in is becoming a reluctant contributor, right? You're in a job, you're in a career position, working at a company where it's like, hey, you know, they're paying me just enough to keep me from quitting, right? It's like, and they're giving me just enough of a raise not to want to go look and do something else, right? And I'm irked enough by the work I'm doing, or not enough that I'm not going to move and go look elsewhere. So we want to avoid getting into that zone. Really, you want to become a peak performer. And again, back to what we talked about earlier, it's those daily choices that you make that will have the impact. That's what's going to decide where you end up. And so we want to take you from enthusiastic beginner into a peak performance mindset, and then that will launch you on the right trajectory going forward. So another way to think about your journey is in terms of this clock, right? And this is an iteration. This isn't a one-time thing, right? This is something that you'll go through many times in your life. In fact, as you went through and embarked on your college career, you went through the cycle, right? You went through a call to action. Hey, this is what I need to go do next, right? Whether it was motivated by parents, by your own desires and influence, others' influence, your perception of what you should be doing in life, whatever it was, there was a call to action. And then you went through this process, and at some point you're going to exit out of it and you're starting another cycle, right? You're about to embark on a career in this field, so there's a call to action associated with that. And I think the important one, and we'll touch more on, is the self-discovery step, right? I think it's really understanding yourself, and the better you can understand yourself, what makes you tick, what makes you passionate, that will be the clue as to what company you want to go work for, what kinds of projects you want to be working on, how you want to spend your time. And so dedicating enough time, back to the case study, the cases in the algorithm, dedicating enough time to that, knowing yourself and developing yourself will pay dividends, because the better you understand yourself, the more you develop yourself, the more positive impact you can have on the people around you, the projects you're on, etc. So again, touching on this concept, right? There's an axis. You have your impact and time. And, a lot of people think that they can just coast, right? That, hey, I can coast and just keep my impact, my life on level. But the truth is that if you do nothing, there is this negative vector that's going to just keep pulling you down. You have to make a concerted effort on a daily basis to keep the nose up, right? You're gonna have to do something on a daily basis to get better, right? To grow, to develop. Whatever that may be, it's going to be different for all of you. You have to decide, what is it? What do I need to focus on a daily basis? Maybe it's a practical technical skill that you're weak on, that you want to improve. Maybe it's a personal skill, interpersonal skill. Maybe it's your communication skills, the ability to do public speaking. Maybe you're shy. Who knows? Whatever it is, find that one thing, and hopefully through the presentation as you go through today, some of that will start to bubble up, so write it down. Hey, what is one area in my life right now, or one skill, technical skill, or whatever it may be, that I really need to get better at? And what's one little thing I could do, 15, 20 minutes a day, that I can do to improve that? And so you end up with these marginal improvements, like, if you get better 1% every month, it adds up till the end of the year, right? It compounds over time. So keep that in mind as we go through the rest of the presentation. Key takeaway is that time is a resource, and its impact can either be positive or negative. It's the magnitude and direction of that impact determined by those little tiny decisions you're making daily. So that brings me to the idea of habit loops and thinking about how to hack your habits, right? And so, basic example of a habit, there's some trigger or cue, right, that triggers the behavior. There's a routine that you execute, and then there's a reward at the end, right? You might superimpose on this algorithm the smoker, right? Maybe they sense a bit of stress, maybe it's boredom, whatever it is, that's the cue. Pull out the cigarette, smoke it, the routine. The reward, you feel better because it contracts your arteries, whatever the effect, physiological effect, and then you repeat it, right? So think about, again, back to the previous slide, what is that one little area you want to get better at? And then figure out what is a routine that you can establish to focus on that, right? Maybe it's at the same time every day, right? After you've had your coffee, you're going to spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes working on, your programming skill, right? Watch a video, one video a day, right? Instead of going and checking social media, I'm going to watch a video on Python programming or data science. Or maybe it's, hey, I need to improve my public speaking skills, so maybe I'm going to start doing a podcast, or who knows, right? It's going to be different. But you want to hack that loop. You want to figure out what is that one thing that's going to trigger that little behavior. What is that one routine that's going to pay dividends, and then have a reward tied to the outcome. So this brings me to the idea of kind of the space that we live in as engineers. And I feel like we live in what I like to say is a privileged space, because we live in a space that intersects with all these different aspects of life, right? We can pull from the creativity side. We can pull from science. We can impact society. We can leverage analysis tools. So it's really a powerful space and a set of tools that we have at our disposal. So, when you start to think about that and really look at the whole gamut, right, of what it means to be in the engineering space, I think you start to see how you can pull from all these resources that you have and skills that you have at your disposal. So, on the outside, there's kind of the engineering process. You ask a question, you imagine solutions, you envision solutions, you plan ways to go execute, test out those solutions, you build, you test and improve, and you iterate. And so it's that the two sides of this is the space that you're in, the environment, and then the process of taking those ideas and putting them to work. And so a big part of this is mindset, right? If maybe you are someone that's very analytical, right? And so you're more on the left side of the graphic here, right? You're all about the numbers, all about the analysis, all about the hard math. Or maybe you're more on the right-hand side. You're someone that ideas and creative concepts come to you easily. You think about things more visually, right? You think about the interconnectedness of things. And so what I encourage you to do is, if you're weak on one side or the other, is complement and develop those skills. Also, as you start to work on teams, find people that complement you, right? If you're someone that's very analytical, maybe you want to complement your team with someone that's much more creative, right? So be cognizant of where you're at, and don't see it as a weakness, right? Don't think that, because I'm not great at math or I'm not a great, programmer, that's a weakness. No, rather focus on what's my strength, and then how can I bring that value into whatever team and whatever endeavor I go and get involved in. So step one, you have to believe. You have to believe that you have that potential to be the best and accept that fact. And until you do that, until you, in your mind, you commit yourself that, hey, I know I can have this tremendous impact. And by the way, why would you limit yourself, right? Why would you have a small vision of yourself when you can have a much bigger vision of yourself in your future and the impact you can make? It's your choice, right? It's a mental construct. And the only thing that you can do by having a small vision for yourself and for your life and for your teams and for your projects is cut yourself short. So Why do it? You can make that vision as big as you want. So do that. And it's critical because it's feedback, right? And so there's a feedback loop, and feedback has an amplifying effect, both positively and negatively, right? The sign of that feedback, you decide, right? If you have positive beliefs about the outcomes that you can achieve on your projects, you know, whatever it is that you're doing, that's going to then determine the potential that and the how much energy you're willing to put into it, right? If you believe you're going to accomplish little, you're going to make little impact, little attempt at it, right? And then that action that you take is going to have limited results. And then it feeds on itself, right? It reaffirms. If you believe you're going to have a small impact, small or negative outcome, and you get a negative result, that's going to reaffirm that, and it's going to compound. If on the other hand, you believe that you can have a positive impact, right? You're going to put more into it. And then even if you have a small result, even if you have that marginal fractional percentage of an improvement, it reaffirms your belief. Hey, it's only a small improvement in impact, then I know I can get better, right? So keep that in mind. That's a very powerful concept and can have a huge impact on anything that you do. And if you've studied any engineering classes that involve feedback, you know what I'm talking about. You know the impact that feedback can have on a system. So the next activity is about defining engineer. I posed the definition of engineer. Now I'm going to give you guys a chance to come up with your own definitions, and these are some funny t-shirts out there, you know, that hopefully your definitions don't sound like this, but let's take a look at that. And so I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes, and I'd like for you to go ahead and use this time to write your own personal definition of engineer, right? What do you use to have what impact, for whom, and by doing what? Okay, so take a few minutes. Twenty seconds. Okay, so anybody want to volunteer to share your definition? Hopefully not the same people, not Dylan, Wattis, or Oleg, just because you've already had a chance to share some ideas. But if nobody else volunteers, I'll take one of you. Okay. Dylan, Wattis, Oleg? Any of you? Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead? I see you typed it in. Do you want to read it out to the group? Yang?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So what I have is an engineer is a person We use these technical and analytical skills to solve world problems around us for a better society and a living environment overall by contributing what they are mostly good at.
Love it. Love it. Real good. What's important about this is not how I feel about it. It's how you feel about it, right? Or anybody else. Does it resonate with you? Does it create the right mindset for you, right? That's the key. And keep working on it, right? Write it down, pin it up somewhere where you can see it on a daily basis, and keep working on that, right? At some point, you may not even use the engineering now. It might turn out to be something different, right? So don't feel constrained by that either, but keep working on that, okay? Anybody else? Can I pick somebody at random? Let's see.
Please do.
Oh, who's that?
Oh, this is Wattis.
Go ahead, Wattis.
Yes. I don't know, like I type it in there. Just me. Let's just base off me. Reason I want to become an engineer is, for one thing, is that I want to build prosthetic, fully functional prosthetic for the soldiers that lost limbs during the Iraq. I was deployed there, a couple of tours, and I've seen soldiers losing limbs under, my unit, and I just want to make them live better. That's pretty much what I said that better thing benefits for self, others, and for the good of living harmoniously in the society. Because if the society is uncomfortable, shortage of food, shortage of the conveniences, shortage of resources, then that society is bound for chaos, bound for unrest. So if we can do that, our engineer using this to solve inconveniences, we can actually have a better society. For myself, I'll live better in that society. For others too, and pretty much it.
Awesome. Thank you for that. The more meaningful you can tie, the more you can tie this to things that give you meaning, the more powerful it becomes, right? And so if it's a life experience, or someone close to you, I think that can have a profound impact, right? And how you think about those little things that you're doing every day, it gives it more meaning, and it's like a magnetism, right? It pulls you in that positive direction. Let's go with Holly. Holly, I see you've put in something in the chat there. Do you want to share your thoughts on it?
I was saying a person who uses both creativity and an analytical approach to find solutions for anything around us that can be done, completed, built, put together better by the way it looks, the way it feels, the way it's efficient, by exercising a constant mindset of positive forward movement.
Nice. Let's do one more. Steven.
Sure. From my perspective, an engineer is described as a person who uses acquired knowledge and experiences to solve a variety of problems, to develop beneficial results for everyone or a certain audience by understanding the importance of contribution, teamwork, and leadership.
Nice. Again, folks, it's your definition. Keep working on it. Keep improving it. Socialize it with people you work in. It says something about who you are, about what makes you tick, and the more you keep that in perspective, the better it becomes, right? And the better you'll execute. I wish I could hear everyone's. I'd love to see more of them, so you'll have my email. Please feel free to share this and any of the other ideas that bubble up as you go through this. It's important for me to get that feedback, because the better I understand the impact I'm having on you guys through this, the better a job I can do the next time. So let's go to the next slide. So here's my personal definition or working definition, and it's evolved, right? Engineer, noun, a person who uses art, science, engineering, and design to positively impact humanity by transforming innovative ideas from the mind into the physical universe. This means something to me. It may not mean something to others, and what matters is that it means something to each of you, right? That your definition helps drive you, motivate you, provide context for executing on a daily basis. So, we've already heard a little bit about this, right? Watts has talked about one of his big whys, right? The impact of being in a war zone and people losing their limbs and then wanting to pay it back and pay it forward by helping develop prostheses. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about big whys. I love this quote from Denzel Washington. Don't just aspire to make a living, aspire to make a difference, right? And I think, at least for me, early in my career, I made choices that were mainly financially driven. I just did. It's a matter of fact. I wasn't always in this mindset that I'm sharing with you today. So for me, it was a discovery process. It was realizing that fact, and that it didn't matter that I was making a six-figure income, right? Working as an engineer for a big corporation. If it just wasn't inspiring, right? And so that led me down this discovery path of figuring out, hey, it's not enough. The paycheck isn't enough. I have to be doing something that's meaningful, that it's impacting others in positive ways. Part of the reason I'm here today, okay? So be cautious, right? Like I said earlier, be careful who you give your time to, right? Especially those early career days. It can be detrimental in the long haul if you're not careful. So whatever area you decide to go practice in, really think about how can you make a positive impact, and challenge yourself to make a difference. Don't just collect a paycheck. Don't just do it for the money. And so there's a lot of, we can source big whys from anything, right? In our lives and society. And, pandemic is a big one right now. A lot of people's lives have been impacted by that. I'd be surprised if, there's someone here that hasn't lost someone or close to them, or, knows of someone in their life that lost someone to the pandemic. Perhaps you were sick yourself, right? And, it's impacted you in that way. The bottom line is, whether it's the pandemic or any of these other challenges faced by humanity, or perhaps very specific challenges in life experiences that you've been in, these are all opportunities to really find a big why and a big reason why you want to contribute. And so spending some time on that, I think, and we'll do an activity here shortly, I think will be very helpful, because when you go after, what you're really passionate about, you're going to run into challenges, right? You are going to get hurt, right? People say, will it be painful? Yes, it will be painful, right? Will you make mistakes? Absolutely, you're going to make mistakes, right? And what's going to keep driving you is if your big why, if that pull is big enough and meaningful enough, that's what's going to get you through those hurdles. So the pictures here, and I'll relate them to the big why and challenge area, is that, if we think collectively as humans, we're all on this rock. This is it. Yeah, we have rovers on Mars, and we're talking about going to the moon. But let's be honest, right? Our best chance for humanity is on this planet. So we have to start thinking about how we impact the planet, and through our engineering efforts, we have an opportunity to make impacts. And so there's this thinking, this shifting in thinking from the last few, 1,000 years of controlling nature to cooperating with nature. I feel like we're going through that. We're going through this paradigm shift where engineering is more about how do we build things in harmony, right, with the environment. Both the natural environment, but also the environment and spaces that we occupy as individuals. And so thinking differently about, instead of controlling things, but cooperating with things, cooperating with all of those elements, design elements I talked about earlier. I think that's a shift that we're all going through, whether we want it or not. And the more conscious we are of that concept of cooperation versus control, I think the more impacts we'll be able to make. So let's do this activity. I'd like for you to pick one of these areas, and if there's something else that's not on this list that's really meaningful for you, I want you to think about where you want to make an impact, right? Whether it's one of these areas or your own idea, what's an area that you want to make an impact in? And then I want you to start to think about, here's the other chart, and I apologize, maybe I'll give you guys a second to maybe do a screen capture or, take a picture with your phone of this. Because what I'd like you to do is pick one of these areas, and then on the next chart, there's some technology areas, and I want you to kind of match the two and think about, hey, what's one technology or a few technology areas that you want to make some contributions in that can have an impact in one of these challenge areas. So if you haven't done so, go ahead and grab a picture or a screenshot of this. And then let's look at the technology curve. So this is a work product that is presented by Gartner. And oh, awesome! Thank you, Ole. Thank you for sharing that. And so this is from 2020, but these are some of the technologies that are emerging right now. This is like, what's in vogue. And by the way, don't feel constrained to the stuff that's in here, but this is the cutting edge. So if there's one of these technology areas that you're passionate about, that really excites you, and it's an area that you maybe are already working in, maybe it's a hobby you're interested in, or maybe you aspire to contribute in, think about that area, and then think about that list from before, and spend 2 minutes and kind of formulate a hypothesis of how how do you think you can contribute in that technology field to the area or the challenge that society faces. And so don't feel like this has to be a fully formed thought, just a sketch, a thumbnail sketch of hypothesis about how you think you might be able to contribute in that tech area. So we'll do 2 minutes on this one. Twenty seconds. Okay. Any volunteers?
I'd like to volunteer.
Go for it.
Yeah, mine's sort of going to be related to the global warming portion. Personally, I think the concept of car sharing is pretty cool, and I see there's could be a lot of good applications in like once the areas become densely populated, especially in densely populated areas, but also like areas like Tampa would be useful when people would the technology would be able to sort of predict the behaviors of people where they travel within the city and the sort of the choke points of the infrastructure that where people could, instead of just taking their cars and commuting, they could car share, for example, and sort of with that knowledge from the AI algorithms that would provide about people's behaviors and the sort of windows where the traffic is where there's a lot of traffic and where there's not a lot of traffic, you could sort of set up those car sharing stations that would be just enough for the people to be using in that particular area and without being overcrowded or crowded in terms of cars. And that would also benefit, I think, greatly to the general infrastructure where there's no better intersections like those roundabouts instead of just regular intersections. And I think that would highly decrease the global warming effects, because it's silly to just get rid of cars or silly to just, let's make it all electric, like it's not like a hit switch, so decreasing is a very big important, the usage is a big important part of the reducing the global warming effects.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else, please?
This is Wattis again.
Okay, wait.
I think
Wattis? I love it.
If you want to have somebody else.
No, it's okay. I want you to share, but I just want for the rest of the group, like, this needs to be, like we said earlier, rule number 1, be involved and contribute. So I'm going to let Wattis go, but I hope the next one will be somebody other than Wattis, Dylan, Oleg, or DeLong. Somebody else, okay? So go ahead, Wattis.
Yeah, to me, it's the energy. I mean, the root cause of everything so far, even the war, is because energy. We human society, you can see that how the Russian pressure, the Syria and other countries around him, around the itself to have access to the oil resources. The pollution that we have nowadays is, of course, because of the oil, which is how we use energy. Coal also is another thing which is caused to the global warming. The prosthetic, the one that I'm thinking about, it still need energy in there. The one that can go in, stay in there for 24 hours or longer to you do any kind of works, and it's safe enough so that it doesn't combust if there's a little, like lithium ion battery that catch on fire very quickly. So this kind of thing is, if I could able to, that would be mine, to find an energy that is, other than what we have currently available, that is using less resources to produce energy, which is kind of not possible in the current science.
Yeah, I think, thank you for that. One of the things that I want all of you to think about is the concept of leverage, right? And not just in the technical sense, but in the more general idea and strategy. And when you think about the energy industry, think of it as a giant monument, right? It's a monument in the context of the businesses, the infrastructure, the mindset of people, right? We're used to, consuming energy in the way that it's currently distributed. There's tremendous infrastructure. There's entire economies that depend on the way that we use oil, transform it, etc. So one of the things that I think it's critical for us, and any area that you're going to focus on, think about that context, and then think about a lever, right? What is that lever that's going to get you to move that monument, right? What is that small, object, idea, concept that you can put into action that can start to get that thing moving, right? So some of these ideas are big and people are going to say, oh, you're going to go try to boil the ocean. I challenge you to step back and say, no, I'm not. I'm going to do this little thing that will cause this other bigger thing that will have this domino effect, right, that ultimately will boil the ocean, right? So work backwards to what can you do now that will have that tremendous impact in the future, right? So, and that applies to the energy idea, that applies to the car sharing idea, to anything that you do that has a huge, tremendous, monumental, position in our society and the world. One more, and then we got to move on. Who else? Other than Stephen, Holly, Oleg, Dylan, Wattis. Somebody else, please.
I guess I can go.
Who's this? Axel?
Axel.
All right.
Yeah. So I guess my kind of idea that I was thinking of is, I don't know if it necessarily fits on the list that was given before, but it kind of has to do with accessibility. So I feel like technology has just changed the world in so many ways by giving people access to so much. But I feel like it still can continue to do so. So I think that if we can work with stuff to make people with disabilities, so an idea that comes to mind, I guess, is like a ASL translator, like live, different types of translations. So just kind of working on different things like that to make everyone as accessible to everything as possible. I think that's a really, intriguing idea.
All right. Yeah,
Can I
listen.
counter a little bit to that?
Yeah, go for it.
My girlfriend is actually an ASL interpreter, and so firsthand I get knowledge about how unique a lot of the ASL dialects are. Like even the Florida dialect compared to if you move across the country to the state of Washington, there would be a different sort of dialect of ASL. And a lot of communities of deaf people actually are so close within Tampa community. They develop their own sort of slang, so to speak, because they can communicate just with each other, and they're so isolated pieces. So it's a very cool idea to sort of have that, but you have to have so many training data in terms of interpreting that, because they try to make ASL gloves that would make signs for you actually, but that's just so hard because there's all these slang dialect. They're just within a small group of people recognizable, and it's very interesting anyway. But I think it's cool that you thought about that. I think it's very cool.
Yeah, again, think about leverage, right? Think about that domino effect. A little domino toppling a slightly bigger domino, toppling a slightly bigger domino. What is that little first step you can take to start to make that impact, right? If you keep that kind of mindset, there's nothing really you can't tackle. All right, let's keep going. Thank you everyone for sharing. So this next area is meant to be a little tongue-in-cheek, right? So if you're going to go change the world, you have to look good while you're doing it. So let's find each of you a cape that fits. And I think this alludes to the idea of, being your own man, your own woman, your own person, right? And not relying on others, right? Not waiting for the big break. Not waiting for somebody to choose you from the pack. It's about making your own path, right? And this begins with what I believe is the first step in this is discovering your own superpower, right? Understanding what makes you unique, right? Your life story, any suffering you've experienced, any, tremendous pleasure in your life, things that have given you meaning, the skills.
Your mic went out.
Your mic went out, Jeremy.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
You're back.
Somebody either on
Yes.
purpose muted me or accidentally. It's whatever. I was being censored. I said something non-PC maybe. Have you discovered that, right? What is that superpower? What is that one unique thing capability, etc., that you have that nobody else has, or that you have an abundance that you can hone and fine tune, right? So part of that, and this is a self-discovery process, involves, back to what we talked about earlier, that journey, right, of self-discovery. So I've got a tool. It's not something I invented. It's an idea that I love the little GIF triggering intensifies PC. That's nice. Thank you, Stephen. I'd like for you guys to complete a little exercise here. Let me share a link. So, and then I'll talk about this. I'd like for you to have the link. I'm dropping it into the feed here, the chat feed. Go ahead and go to that link. And so what this will do is it's a 7-question survey, and the goal of the survey is to help you better understand yourself. It's going to help categorize you in one of these 4 areas. Actually, I think it'll give you your primary and secondary. So you'll end up with a combination. And it's about kind of how you think. And this isn't necessarily a static thing. This is something that changes over time. You might answer the questions one way today, and 3 weeks from now answer them slightly differently and end up elsewhere. So even for, I think, the guys on my team, we did this during the first week. Do it again, because I think you'll learn something from it this time. So I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for 2 minutes. Just click on the link, go to the site, and answer the 7 survey questions. And at the end, it's going to show you this graphic, and it's going to show you where you landed. I encourage you to go ahead and grab a screenshot of that so you can have it handy and for reference later. And then at the end of the 2 minutes, we'll have some people share where they land.
Let's describe your approach.
All right, go for it.
Fine.
Wilson, just give it a minute, and if it doesn't pop up, try refreshing the browser. It looks like it takes a second or two to render the survey. Yep. Okay, has anybody gotten through it?
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead. Tell us where you landed.
Let's see. Let me go back there real quick. I am we're in the top half, art and science.
You landed on art and science.
Yes.
Was that where you expected to land?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let's find somebody that landed somewhere they didn't expect. Is there anyone whose results were maybe different than you thought they might be?
I landed between art and design, the behavior side,
Interesting.
which I didn't expect to be.
Who's this? Who's speaking?
Oleg.
Okay.
This is Oleg. Yeah. So.
What is it?
I don't know.
So now that you've landed there, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I do have like I don't know, tendencies like to be more collaborative with people in terms of like for any engineering projects. Like I like the collaborative spaces, let's say, and working in teams rather than just sitting in the dark coding on your own sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
So that's and sort of envisioning the future design of an application or let's say a platform, but I thought there would be some engineering involved as well, or science.
So keep in mind, this is not. It doesn't mean that you don't having. All right, let me back up. So first of all, this can vary,
right.
week to week, month to month, with the seasons. And second of all, it doesn't mean that you don't. It doesn't mean that you're not an engineer, right? That's not what this means.
No, yeah,
I think this
absolutely.
is all about that you probably have a way of approaching problem solving that lends itself more towards the art and design side of this compass, right? So so start to think about, okay, in the context of engineering and products, where are my strengths? Where can I more easily, maybe with less conflict and ease, make contributions? So maybe it's more on that area of the art side. It's understanding people's behavior, coming up with new interesting ways of visualizing, thinking about problems. And then on the design side, it's about the aesthetics of it, the human interaction, how to make a product that is functionally useful, but maybe make it easier to use, more convenient, more pleasing, etc. Right? So just start to think about that. So maybe UI UX is an area where you can make some really interesting contributions, easier than maybe on the more hard science side of things, where you're having to really be more on the hypothesis proving experiment side of it. Okay.
Okay.
I think Holly, and then Marianne French. Let's go with Holly and then Marianne. I think you said yours was unexpected.
Mine was unexpected. I feel like I'm more right brain focused, so the fact that I didn't get art and design is kind of surprising.
Where did you
but
land?
I'm a problem solver. I on the right, the science and engineering.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, you compare me to my husband. I'm the one that solves the problems. He's the one that panics. But I guess in a matter of speaking, that is okay. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, just reflect on it, guys. This is all about self-discovery. It's about what it means to you and what you do with it, right? So maybe that's a strength that you never thought you had or hadn't really recognized, right? The ability to break something down methodically into a hypothesis, iterate on it, and then come out with either a new engineering insight or a new way to apply knowledge, right? How about Marianne?
I guess to me it was kind of unexpected because like all of my life I've kind of been really interested in like art and stuff. So I guess that's like the reason. Okay,
good. Sometimes we need permission to think about ourselves a little differently. Sometimes, our nurture and upbringing and life experiences make us think that we're cats and we're actually dogs, or some other breed. So maybe for some of you, that's part of it. Who knows, right? I don't want to speculate, beyond that. Just think about all the possible reasons why this may be surprising to you, okay? And then just explore that and see where it leads. I have to move on. Again, I wish I had more time, but in the interest of time, I'm going to go to the next one. All right. So this is a good one. So this is another quote that I really like. The trouble with every one of us, and by the way, this is Thomas Watson talking to his engineering staff. is that we don't think enough. We get paid for work. We don't get paid for working with our feet. We get paid for working with our heads. And so the next section, we're going to really talk about, as engineers, we're knowledge workers, right? And so I want to explore that idea of that. It's not about how many lines of code you can crank out. It's not about, how many math equations you can solve in what time. It's about the ultimate impact, right? It's about thinking about problems and really those thorny problems and focusing on those. That's where the real value is, right? Not the mundane, like going about the routine. So I think, by the way, this entire next section is just about just a lot of little tidbits and ideas that I want to share with you. So it starts with this section on thinking. So as engineers, we have to think, right? A big part of our job is to just stop, sit back and think about a problem. And sometimes that it's a hard concept for people to think about, right? And to consider is the idea that a big part of the reason you'll be paid is for you to literally just sit there and actually think about a problem, right? And so don't feel like your job is just to churn out code or is just to churn out a design or whatever it is that you're doing. A big part of your job is to really use your wetware. And so as knowledge workers, you are gonna, traffic in this capital of knowledge. And so it's both the knowledge you're acquiring in college now and the knowledge you're going to produce through building experiments, right? Back to the last section, right? Defining a hypothesis about how to solve a problem and then going out and dreaming up different alternatives to solve that problem, and then through that scientific method proving or disproving the quality or effectiveness of that solution. That's new knowledge, right? That's what you get paid to do. So, there's all sorts of examples of knowledge working out there. The key is that make sure that you don't lose track of that and that you make time in your daily routines to really think about the problems you're working on. So one of the obstacles, one of the things that's going to get in our way is noise. And I love to share this equation. It's probably one of the more mathematical parts of this presentation. It's the signal to noise ratio equation, right? It's used in communications and signals analysis to characterize noise in a system, right? Or a channel. And so in all of our lives, there's sources of noise, right? Early in the beginning slides, we talked about social media as being a source of noise, right? Noise may be a negative relationship that you're in. Maybe there's someone in your life that is a huge source of noise and it's keeping you from doing whatever it is you're trying to do. Who knows, right? What's important is to really be aware of it, right? And it starts with awareness. It's recognizing that there are all these sources of noise. In modern society, we're being marketed to constantly. We're being advertised to. There are algorithms designed to get your attention. So unless you're aware of those algorithms, you're aware of those signals, and you're taking action, direct action, to block them, they will get in your head and they will get in your way. So social media, email noise, who knows, right? It's billboards, anything, right? It's out there. Mitigate it. Be aware of it and mitigate it and manage it. And that will keep you from thinking clearly. So another aspect, another concept in thinking about knowledge is, I call them knowledge loops, knowledge cycles. It's something I've encountered throughout my entire career is these processes that are closed loops. And they're all very similar, right? On the top left-hand corner, we have the loop around, innovation and knowledge sharing, right? Very similar to what we looked at earlier in terms of the engineering process, right? So innovation starts with sharing ideas, sharing learning, getting new ideas, new knowledge, applying that knowledge, learning from it, coming up with new ideas, and iterating. To the right of that, upper right-hand corner, we have the lean startup process. Again, it's a learning loop, right? It's ideas leading to code, leading to data, through building, measuring, and learning. On the bottom left is a loop associated with competitive intelligence, collecting intelligence of all sorts, whether it be business intelligence, military intelligence, very similar loop. And then the last one is this loop around Six Sigma. They decided to go counterclockwise on us on that one, but it's essentially the same thing. So the bottom line is that knowledge involves iteration and involves cycles and loops. And so if you can understand that, you can then apply that in pretty much anything that you do, and you'll start to see these loops everywhere, right? As you go, even going back to textbooks, you'll start to see this idea of these iterative loops in a lot of what you work on. And it's all the same model. At the core of it is the same model. Okay, next. Okay, so the next thing is tools. So as knowledge workers, you need tools. One of the most powerful tools is a journal. Again, back to the beginning, taking notes. It's super important, right? Because knowledge involves iterations and it involves loops. By the time that you close the loop, you will have forgotten ideas, thoughts, etc., that you had when you started, right? Some of these learning loops can take many days, many weeks, many months. And so keeping a journal is really essential, right? You're gonna lose ideas unless you write them down. So find the best tool that works for you. There's a lot of, bullet journaling is a methodology that I use that many people like. There's tools like Evernote, OneNote. There's new ones out there. Those are kind of old and dated. But just find something that works for you and take notes. Somebody turned the cycle around. Okay, computer. Don't skimp on your computing tools. I know engineers that complain, they're at a company, they won't give me a new computer, or the computer they gave me was shitty. You're a professional, right? If you were a carpenter, you'd have to buy your own tools, right? If you were a mechanic, you'd have to go out and buy your own toolbox. So don't skimp out on your computing tools. Get the right tool for the job. That doesn't mean you need the highest performance CPU, etc. Just get the right equipment that you need for your job to be effective. Engineering references, I think, are extremely powerful. Having the right references at your disposal will save you a lot of time. You can't memorize everything, right? We don't all have a photographic memory, so having tools that will help you find the information you need quickly so that you can iterate in design and your thought process are extremely helpful. Google obviously is quite handy, but be careful. There's a lot of fake articles on Google. So make sure you're using trusted sources. And I've already said this. If your employer doesn't provide you the tool you need, buy it. You're a professional and you should really act like it. Complaining about it isn't going to make it better. Okay, so we've talked about thinking as an engineer. Let's talk about what are some things that you must be. I think you really have to be in alignment with your core values. We've spent already a lot of time here about understanding your big why. The next part of that is, your core values, right? What is it that drives you? What makes you tick? What are those, core perceptions, etc., that, impact and color the decisions you make? I think that's important, understanding those, because when you live life, when you pursue career decisions that aren't in alignment with that, it just creates conflict and friction that it's going to keep you from being successful. I think you really need to think and put yourself in an innovative mindset, and at the same time being flexible, right? Being agile, being able to, accept results from experiments and things that you try, and not letting failure keep you from making progress. Certainly thinking creatively about those problems, being lateral thinkers. I think the next one is super important, optimistic. I like to say that nothing in engineering was ever accomplished thinking you couldn't be successful or wouldn't be successful. But you'd be surprised. You'll end up working with people that are going to, they're going to say that we'll never be able to do that. There's no way. That's impossible. And 3 months later, it's done, right? So you have to go into project with a positive attitude, believing that you're going to accomplish it, but you will run into people that will be naysayers. I think ambition is important, and confidence, right? Having the courage and the ambition to push the envelope, to do something that's a little bit more, to kind of push that knowledge and curve and performance curve just beyond what's possible today. That's what's going to allow you to achieve significant breakthroughs in technology and whatever you work on. And that requires taking risks, right? That brings us to the idea of intelligent risk taking. I'm not asking you to be reckless, to go, try things without understanding the potential impact. Go work on a high energy project and end up blowing up the lab. Think intelligently, but do take risks to push the envelope. I see a lot of notes, professional expenses. You mean like business related expenses? Yeah, I'm not sure. There's a thread going on there, but we'll come back to that. Okay, some of the things you should know. You really only need a small amount of what you're learning at university. If I had to put a number of it, I'd say maybe I used 20% of the stuff I actually learned in classes. Not to say that it hasn't all been, made a positive impact. I think that every class that I took, I got something from. But the reality of it is that you're ultimately really only going to use a small percentage of what you're learning. But it's the 20% that matters most, right? And that will only reveal itself to you through experience. So you have to get it all while you're there. Know yourself and be honest about your limits. I think this goes both ways. I think that some people aren't willing to take on projects because they doubt their abilities. And I think there's other people that stretch way too far and then end up in situations and projects where they can't deliver. So be careful, right? Don't be too shy, and don't be willing to take some intelligent risks and take on projects that force you to stretch a bit, because only by stretching will you grow. But also don't overstretch and be reckless and end up taking on projects where you just can't deliver and then jeopardize other people's outcomes. Know your desired outcomes. That's a great segue, right? Think about projects from the end. What is the desired outcome? And then work backwards to, hey, what do we need to do right now that will get us closer to that outcome? And that gets into the whole idea of effective project management. How do you do that? How do you break that project up into small slices that you can iterate and work on, that every day build up to the big outcome? We've already spent some time talking about societal, political, and environmental impacts. Whatever projects you're working on, they're going to have impacts. Be aware. Try to minimize and mitigate where you're going to have negative impact, and then try to expand and grow where you'll have a positive impact. Having a deep understanding of your customer, I think, is super critical. I think a lot of people go into engineering, including myself, early in our careers, thinking about it from a very technical perspective. And at the end of the day, engineering is a business, right? And business is about bringing value to an end customer, bringing value to society. And the better you can understand the customer, right? And not, don't give that responsibility away to a marketing team or a sales team. Take ownership for it, right? Demand to ask why. Why do we need to add this feature? Which customer needs it? How is it going to bring value to them? Right? Those questions are questions that are completely legitimate, and if the people that you're working with can't answer them, then you might be in the wrong team. So always have a deep understanding of the customer and the business need. Recognize the difference between price, cost, and value. Again, it's more of a financial thing, but like I said, engineering is a business. It always is in some context, right? Whether it's a nonprofit, profit endeavor, it doesn't matter. It's about bringing value as efficiently as possible and having the maximum impact at the end. And so understanding, price, if the price is going to be $0 because we're not, we're going to give it away for free, there's still a cost and there's still value tied to it, right? And so understanding, or if you have a margin that you're trying to achieve, understanding price versus the actual cost of products is critical. I think that you'll end up making more informed engineering decisions if you understand those three components. Okay, things engineers must do. Take massive action, right? Every single day, right? Back to that whole idea of it's those little decisions that you do every day, the little actions you take every day. Those are the ones that are going to get you to that next tier of performance and get your teams to where you want to go. You want to continuously be experimenting and learning, and only by taking action, by trying things, will you get there. Definitely make good use of resources. All of these come into play in one way or another on whatever projects you're working on. And we've touched on a lot of that already. Teamwork. There's very few lone wolves out there. I think there's a lot of people that get put on pedestals and become celebrities like Elon Musk and so on, that we think they're these individual doers that do these great things, but behind them there are these teams. Right? Everything in the modern world really happens in the context of a team. Anything big, for sure. So, teamwork is critical, right? Understanding how you fit in the team, right? Knowing yourself and knowing your team members and how you complement each other, right? If you're on the science engineering side, is there somebody that's on the art and design side? Or if you're on the art and science side, do you have someone that's in the art and design, and so on? And making sure that those complements are there, both in how you approach problems, how you think about problems, the skill sets that are needed. Maybe you're a strong programmer, maybe you're not. Then maybe you need somebody that's really good with project management or UI UX, whatever it is. Make sure you build complementary teams, because having a team with a bunch of strong programmers and nobody that has a good design aesthetic is not going to get you very far. Effectively manage and transform information and knowledge. We've talked about this, so please take notes and constantly be thinking. Make room in your daily routine to stop and think about what you're doing. So that is a very long list, and I think a lot of you are thinking, hey, this guy's saying a lot of things, but how do I put all of this into action, right? How am I going to do all of this? Where do I start? I think you really need to go back to tapping into your self-discipline. I think that's your most powerful resource. Pick one area, right? Don't try to do it all. You saw this list of all these things. Pick one thing that you want to work on and focus on that, right? And develop that daily habit of making that one thing better. And when you feel like you've made good progress on that, go to the next one, and then go to the next one. And over time, you'll look back a year from now and you'll be like, wow, that 15, 20 minutes a day really has made a difference. So just focus on one, pick one. There's a couple of books I recommend that I think can help you develop some of these skills and this mindset. First one is Power of Habit. I think that it talks about, habit loops, how to build them, how to develop them, how to leverage them positively. And then the second one is The Slight Edge. And this book is all about, those small little daily disciplines and how they add up, right? It's about, the human behavior side. And I think they read well together. I've read them multiple times in parallel, and I've gotten a lot from them. A lot of what I'm sharing here actually comes from these books. So if you're interested in diving deeper, you definitely should pick these up. The other thing I suggest is I do have a Slack community, Phiquest.slack.com. It's not very active, to be honest with you. I wish it was more active. So if any of you guys leave today and you're motivated to engage in a dialogue with me and others about any of these ideas, that's a place that you can go to. It's it's meant to be a resource, so use it to the best of your ability. So what next? We've got about, 24 minutes, Ken? Is that correct? We're here till 1?
You're here till 1:45.
Oh, we have more time. Does
You
anybody
do.
need a break? Can you raise the hand on the device if you need a break?
Nope. We usually take no breaks.
A break would be nice.
All right, let's do a 5-minute break, and then we're going to cover section 2 of this, and we'll wrap up. So I'll do a 5-minute timer, and we'll come back in 5, okay? Okay, I'm back. I was reading through the notes, and let's see. Dylan said, no wait, who was it? Wada says, the good thing about dealing with the government is they always tell you how to get one over on them in writing. I love that. I gotta find a way to put that into those presentations somewhere.
As I was talking from experience.
That's great. Okay. I think everyone's back. If not, they'll have to catch up. All right. So the first part of this was very much about just you as individual contributors. How to better yourself, how to get in the right mindset or a better mindset, etc. This other part of the presentation, it's about building teams to go after new ideas, right? And so, at some point you may stumble on an idea that you want to go pursue on your own. And meaning you want to be the leader and then build a team around it rather than join an existing team. And so this is all about developing those ideas and the process of pursuing them, whether it be in a startup or some other format. So kind of tongue-in-cheek here, right? If thinking leads you to innovative ideas, you may decide to pursue them, and in that unfortunate event, you should learn how to make fire. And let's talk about that, making fire. So fire is a process, right? And I think it's an excellent metaphor for innovation and introducing new ideas and products, and we'll explore that idea here. So there's a model for fire, the model tetrahedron. It consists of some kind of fuel, oxygen, heat, and then a chain reaction. And you can read the definition of chain reaction there, but the basic idea is positive feedback in a chain of events, right? So if you start to think about innovation in the context of a fire, it's about creating and maybe building a startup or building a new technology or whatever you pursue. We talked about leverage earlier, right? And the monument around energy. You got to think about what are those initial conditions you need to create to start to build a chain reaction that will build on itself, right? That you can build a small little fire that you can keep feeding, right? And the more fuel you feed it, the bigger it gets over time, and the more you can sustain it. So let's think about that concept and how that translates into innovation. So if you think about fire, it's a time series, it starts off with the right conditions, right? You have enough fuel in hand, you have access to oxygen, and you can inject enough heat into it. That creates ignition, right? And at that point, you haven't completely leveraged feedback, right? That chain reaction feedback loop hasn't taken place. But as the temperature rises and the byproducts of the combustion start to build, at some point the fire starts to suck in those byproducts of combustion, and then it's going to suck energy out of those as well. And the heat is going to rise even faster. So the rate of the fire goes up. Eventually, if you don't continue to feed it new fuel, the fire is going to die out. But as long as you feed it fuel, you can sustain it and you can grow it even larger. So again, it's about these starting conditions, right? It's about what is the minimal amount of fuel or what is the minimal set of ideas, tools, team that you need, that minimum viable concept and team that it's going to take you to ignite and then get to that point where you have enough feedback to sustain it. So I like to use the Facebook example, right? It's the evil Facebook, right? That's basically monetizing all of our likes and dislikes. But the basic idea is that there's a feedback process in the Facebook algorithm, right? And the Facebook business model is designed to capture our attention by giving us a promise of, connecting with others and having these online relationships. And then it uses that communication to understand and characterize our likes and dislikes. And then it masters that information and packages it as a product for advertisers, which then lets them, put ads that are most relevant to you. And then by measuring our response to those ads, its algorithm gets better and it adjusts over time. So, and it generates revenue from it. And so, again, it's just one example, but pretty much at the core of any successful business model, there's some engine, some motor that has feedback that keeps it going. And so when you're starting to think about an idea, a concept, whether it's, the energy problem, Watas, you want to go pursue, or Oleg, I think it was your concept around ride sharing, or anything, you need to think about, okay, great, I've got one small piece of it, I've got the tech part of it, or I've got the little business model. What else do I need to get this thing to build the motor that's going to keep it growing and being successful as a business? So if now we think about this in the context of a business cycle and using the same exact curve, you'll see that it's a perfect metaphor, right? So instead of temperature, we're talking revenue or expense if it's early on in the development of the project. There's a part of this curve that happens prior to this, and it goes kind of the revenue part is negative. You're investing money into it before you get to an MVP, and that's the part where you're gathering resources, right? If you've ever created a fire by hand, you know that there's a significant amount of time that's spent prior to starting the fire, going out and finding the right resources, the tinder, the fuel, and the ignition sources, or generating the heat, maybe through a friction fire, or if you're lucky enough, you have a flash or a lighter that you can use to light it. So all of that happens before, to the left of the curve. But at some point, you've got the right team in place, right? You have all the resources, you have an idea that makes sense, you've experimented, right, with those elements, and you figured, hey, if we have this much, tinder, and it's dry, it's at least this dry, and we put this much heat, we can get it to spark. Great, that's your MVP, right? And now you're ready to go. Now you're truly ready to invest and kick off the fire. And so that's when you hit ignition, right? You now have your minimum viable product. You're going to go to do your initial go-to-market step, right? And at that point, it's a very delicate fire. It's a very delicate environment, your company, your team, right? Any little thing could throw it off, right? If you don't keep feeding it fuel, or if you feed it fuel too quickly, you might drown it out. If you starve it of oxygen, it can also go out. You name it. There's all these little delicate things that could happen. So you have to be very protective of this fire early on, right? And it's the most critical phase, right? Now, if you manage all of that and you feed it fuel in the right proportions and you ensure that it still has the amount of heat, you can get to this point here where you tap the market. And that's when rapid growth of a startup, of a company, of a concept takes place. This is when that feedback, where now there is revenue coming back from the product, where every little feature that's being put out is meaningful to the end user and produces more value and a willingness to pay, or you attract more of the market. That's what happens during this rapid growth phase. At some point, the product reaches maturity, and one of two things happens. Either you continue to innovate and grow the market by taking it to other regions, other territories. You pivot to a different, use of your technology, or, you find other ways to bring value to the same customers you already have, in which case you can sustain it for as long as you want and maybe even grow it, right? One of these curves can then spin off another one of these curves and so on. Or if you don't keep feeding it, it'll reach decline. So same curve, same process. To me, it's fascinating to think about it in this way. Here's what it looks like from a business standpoint, like I said, before MVP, there's an investment section where you're doing your R&D. You've got your set of ideas. You're experimenting with those ideas. Eventually, when you feel you're almost tapped out, remember I said earlier, like if you're going to go pursue some big ideas, you're going to go through hell. And this is hell, right? When you're down to the last penny, you feel like you've tried everything. And the only thing that's keeping you moving is that passion and that burning in the belly. That's hell, right? And so that's when you know what you're really made of. And that's when you know that you're really pursuing something that you love, right? And that sees you through. Eventually, that idea flourishes to an MVP, and then you're on your way. So, continuing the analogy, right, we've talked about these different elements of fuel, oxygen, heat, and then the feedback loop, right? So, again, you can superimpose whatever concept onto the fuel, oxygen, heat. I'll just give you some ideas here on how I think about it. I think that the heat of a startup, it's the big why, right? It's the vision, the leadership, the thinking. That's that core that no matter what happens, you know that you can turn that on. It's up to you. You have control over that heat and how much of that you put into it. Fuel, right, is the tools, technology, old knowledge, resources, right? That's hard cost types of things that you're going to have to go source, right? On the oxygen side, it's knowledge, it's insights, it's ideas. Most of these are out there in the wild, right? The oxygen's out there. You can harvest it. You can put it to work. Fuel you may have to buy, or you may have to beg, borrow, and steal to get it, right? But you put all of these together, along with your, part of the fuel is your team. Then you have a chance to build an MVP, and then getting it to market and creating that chain reaction and that feedback. That's the last element that's going to get it to grow. A lot of people say, what about money? To me, I think of money and capital as an accelerant, right? You're gonna need it to grow, but it's not essential, right? A lot of people think, well, I've got a great idea. If I only had $50,000 or $100,000 to go do it. Well, you're not thinking about it. You're not thinking about the problem in the right way. You have to think about that. What is the minimal thing I can do that will create enough value that I might be able to go get somebody excited enough about it that they'll pour a little gas on it, right? Maybe you only need $2,000. Hey, you got a credit card, right? Forgo, the Starbucks coffee, whatever. Invest in the idea. It only takes a small amount if you think about the problem and the context and the scale of it. So money is not essential. This up here, this heat is. And if you can find that and tap into it, nothing can stop you. So same equation we started with. Innovation is a function of people, knowledge, materials, living things, time, energy. People is at the center of this. That passion, your ideas, your big why, your values, that's what drives it. If you understand that, that's going to lead you to success. That's going to lead you to a breakthrough. If you get confused along the way and you let, money and other things drive you, it's like ice cream. You'll enjoy it for a while, and then after a while you'll be like, man, I ate a lot of ice cream and now I feel like crap. So focus on what really makes you tick, what's really meaningful, what really inspires you and the people around you, and that will be your path. So now what? How is this all going to help you? How are you going to stand out in the crowd of 100,000 other engineering graduates or more? Understand your big why. Think about some of the ideas I shared today. Hopefully by now, if you've been taking notes, you will have written something down that resonated with you. Maybe there's that one little nugget that you say, you know what? If that one little thing, if I worked on that, that can get me that extra little 1% improvement over time. That's the key. Unlock that. And if you put that at the center of your conversations with people you're interviewing, with you know, when you talk to them passionately, that passion comes out. It's not fabricated. It overcomes, you know, the nervousness. It overcomes, you know, the insecurities, because it's you. It's genuinely who you are, and nobody can take that away from you. So understand yourself, understand your niche, understand your value, and that will unlock your success. So always be failing, always be learning, and always be innovating. And with that, you're on your journey. So a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. I say take it now. I thank you for your time today. I hope that this was inspiring, enlightening, educating. And I wish you the best. Generally wish you the best, and I hope to hear from all of you. Thank you. Ken, it's all yours.
Well, Jeremy, you want to take some questions now for discussion?
Yes, let's do that. Questions. Lots of thank yous. You're welcome.
You said that you had a career that you focused on like finances for a while, and then you kind of realized that wasn't really where your passion in life was. Could you detail what that transition was mentally for you?
Yeah, I spent 16 years working at a large aerospace corporation, and I did really well for myself. I had you know, I was considered within the company, what do they call it, a high compensation employee, or whatever the right phrase is that they use. And yeah, it was great. It was great. I was eating vanilla ice cream every day, so to speak, right? It was sweet. It was nice to have the cash, etc. But you know, what I found after a while was that the career I was in, the work environment I was in, wasn't rewarding beyond that. Looking back, I think a lot of it was my own doing. I think that had I thought about, you know, the opportunities that were right there around me and looked at problems around me differently, I could have had a much more fulfilling career. But I didn't know it at the time, right? I was in a context where I just, you know, I was drowned. All of that was drowned out by the noise, right? I talked about that earlier. And so I had to step away. And I think once I did, I took the leap. I went and worked for a startup. And once I did that, like this entire different perspective in the world and solving problems and how I could contribute opened up. And when that happened, I think that's what got me on this new path and this new way of thinking about solving problems and making a contribution. I started to think I'm more than just a geek in the back room, and I can have an impact beyond just the technical side of it. And by doing that, I think, you know, everything gets better. And so that's what led me ultimately to pursue what I'm doing now, which is, you know, doing this sort of thing. So there's 3 things we do, right? We facilitate personal growth experiences for individuals and teams. We develop technology solutions, and we define strategies for success. So, you know, I found that was my niche. That's what I'm passionate about. And I love working with people that are, you know, innovative and inspire others, right, to do the same and pursue, you know, their great ideas and their passions.
And then I guess I have a second question there of, so our generation, like, you know, the younger generation has kind of taken up a habit of switching out companies every couple years, which I know for, you know, older employees, that's a bit of a new idea. What do you think about that as far as just trying to figure out like which field you're interested in? Like, what do you think about that as like a strategy for an individual?
I think every experience, you're going to learn something, you know, from every single experience. I think that if you're committed to learning from it, let's say that you're company hopping just because every time you get a 20% increase in your salary, that's probably not the best reason to be doing it. But if the primary reason is because you feel like you're still maybe searching for the right fit, right, that aligns with your values, your passion, your beliefs, you know, your big why, if that's what's driving you, And in the process of doing that, there's the plus that there's maybe more money tied to it, or other positive outcomes. Then I think that's a better reason. I think just to company hop just because you're gonna get a bigger pay, that's probably not the best. At least for me, that's just my biased way of thinking about it. Probably not the most fulfilling reason to do it. If you're racing, if you go into this career because you want to race towards retirement, right? Because you want to get as quickly as you can to $1 million or whatever it is, so you can go do something else. Go do that now. Don't wait till you're retired. Don't wait till the $1 million to go do what it is that you're going to do once you have the $1 million. Start today. That's your passion, right? I think people convince themselves that they need to be retired or they need this tremendous wealth to do whatever it is that's fulfilling, and that, I think that's a trap. If that's why you're doing it, that's the wrong reason. Go do whatever it is that you think you're going to do once you've acquired that wealth. That's where you need to be.
Okay, and then also you had essentially, it looked like a lot of kind of internal reflection throughout the presentation as to like who you are and what you can contribute to the world, to your projects, to the things you're interested in. How do you only have a limited amount of time, and this might seem like a strange question, but for me, I kind of struggle with this sometimes. How do you choose one thing that you're really excited about to put your all behind, if there's just so many things that you could be curious about,
That's a great question, and it goes back to just really understanding what you're most passionate of, right? Like, it's interesting. Like, until you do this exercise, it's hard to, I think, understand. And it's that self-reflection that ultimately shows you the train track, right? It's like by stopping long enough to really think about what matters to you and being cognizant of it, right? That there are these biases, right? That sometimes get in the way of saying, what I really want to be doing is that, right? But I'm doing this other thing because I need to pay a bill, or I'm doing this other thing because that's what mom and dad expect me to be doing, or whatever it is. When you're honest with yourself that the reason you're not doing what you really love to be, or are passionate and would love to be doing, is because somebody else's opinion, only then does it reveal itself to you. And I think I went through that. It was a life experience. And I think there were people along the way that said very similar things to me, that what I'm sharing with you today, that I just wasn't listening, or I hadn't seen it yet. But once you do, it's like magic. It's like, man, it was so easy all along, right? If I was really honest with myself, if I was really pursuing the stuff that I wanted to, I could be so much further along in terms of, I could have a much more fulfilling life and career. So it'll reveal itself if you keep, thinking about it and self-reflecting.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
This is Wattis again.
Yes, sir.
What are the 3 questions you usually ask people who in the interview?
Why are you here? Where do you want to go with us? What would you like to accomplish with us? And, if there was one thing that you bring to the table, what is it? What is that one unique thing that you can contribute to our team that you think you could do better or different than others? I think those are critical to knowing what makes a person and what motivates them. So why are you here? Where do you expect to be, or help us get to? And what is the one little unique thing that you bring to our team?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. If you have, if one of your contributions to a team is a soft skill, like let's say like being an effective communicator, how would you best sell that to an interviewer?
Oh, that's an interesting question. How do you sell that to an interviewer?
Portfolio.
Yeah, I think telling the story, right? I think communication is about telling stories. You can do that through a portfolio visually. You can do that through a combination of what you say. Today, right? This presentation, it's a story. So I think it's about how can you tell that story in the small time you get in an interview so that it has the most impact. And so finding a way to, say, maybe through an example, right? If I was to end up in a team that, lacked X, Y, C, me as a team member could bring that skill, right? Not only can I bring some hard technical skills to the mix, but I also have the soft skill. Let me tell you about one time where I was able to make an impact with it. Maybe you were in the Boy Scouts and there was a leadership experience. Maybe you were prior service military and there was a leadership soft skill experience. Maybe it was helping somebody deal with a relationship issue. Who knows? Whatever it is, tell the story. A true story, right? Don't make one up. And I think that can have the biggest impact. And trying to communicate that value, and that goes for everything, really, right? We're humans. We love stories. We love to tell stories. We love to hear stories. So if you can put your ideas into the form of a story, then 3 acts, right? Opening act, developing, and the climax. I think that can go a long way. Did that help? By the way, yeah, please, hold me to account, right? If I say something and you say, that is bullshit, I won't be offended. I need to hear the feedback.
Right, and I guess the idea is that you would have your, like a kind of, I don't know how to say it, like a sample story that you've kind of refined that would sell that to the interviewer?
Yeah, that's what I would do. I think if it's a soft skill thing, right? The hard skills are easy, and even those, if you can tell them in the context of a story, it's even better, right? Mm-hmm. If you're a really strong programmer and you can say, I was working on this project and this other person went ill and I ended up being the only one that had to write the code and I was able to knock it out in 48 hours, like that's a story. Right, it's a lot more compelling than saying I'm really good at C++, or whatever it may be. Context. Same thing for the soft skills.
All right, thank you.
I got a question again. This is Waters. Between networking and merit system, which one do you prefer? That in your opinion.
Say that again. Networking or what?
The networking. Nowadays, we have to know somebody to do something to be successful. That's what a lot of people were saying nowadays. But back in the older day, we saying that merit system, which is can you do it? Can you do that job? It doesn't matter if
merit. Got it. No, listen, I think it's always been about knowing people, right? I think that even in a merit type system, it's about trust, right? People first get to know you, then they like you, then they trust you, right? And I think that, so keep that in mind, right? First they know you, then they like you, then they trust you. And so when in the context of networking, a lot of people know who you are. Most of them don't like you, and very few of them trust you. And so, with any relationship, you got to go through those 3 steps, right? And so networking, if you've already got, if you already know somebody, you're 2 steps away, right? If they like you, you're 2 steps away. If they like you, you're 1 step away. So, merit, I think it's part of it, right? I think that people trust you because you've proven yourself, right? How do you build trust with someone, right? Because you deliver on a promise, right? You do what you say you're going to do. And usually, if you make commitments in alignment with your capabilities and what you could do, right? We talked about that earlier, right? Not trying to be too ambitious and take on projects and commitments you can't deliver on, right? So people trust you when you meet commitments, and if you have the skills, therefore the merit, then you can deliver on it. I think that's part of it, and it's a two-way street, right? There's people that will abuse the trust and abuse your capabilities. So that's where I think it's critical to know your worth, right? There's no shortage of people out there that will, want you to work for free or want you to work for a lot less than you're worth, right? So know your worth, and then that way you can't be taken advantage of in a relationship.
Yeah, because I was looking into history, and my life experience also involved with this. Because, like, for example, the Eisenhower, he's very good at the political game, but Patton, who is more capable in strategic, in a strategy than Eisenhower, he wasn't able to. As a matter of fact, he got demoted a couple of times. I mean, not by rank, but by position. And also MacArthur, Admiral Spruance, who just simply a very good soldier, but he never made a 5-star and so forth. That's why I'm just saying, but these people have 2 things. One has very good at the social skill. The other one, but, don't get me wrong, they are capable in their job. But one of them is merit. The other one is network. And to me, it just really, at this point, I don't really know which way to go for because,
I think I would focus on building strong relationships. I think that and again, building trust, right? Get to know people and then build trust. And I think that's the best advice I could give you. As for Eisenhower, Patton, and those guys, I don't know enough about them to be able to say much. But at least for me, I'd say it's about the relationships, and that's important. And are there people getting hired that are a lot less capable than others for jobs? Absolutely. Why? Because maybe they told a better story. So, don't lie, but hone your story, right? Go through the cycle, right? Get known, get liked, be trusted.
That's a very soft skill that's hard to earn.
You'll get there. Maybe that's the one you want to work on, right? Maybe that's the one thing you want to start to think about. Get curious about it, right? I've given you a few little ideas. Maybe go research it a little bit. Hey, how to build trust, right? I'm sure there's a book somewhere if you Google it, instant trust, right? How to be successful in a 5-minute interview. I just made that up, but I guarantee if you Google it, there's a book out there that's kind of a close title to that, and I'm sure there's a lot of ideas in there about how to do it.
Oh yeah. The practice is the hard one.
Yeah, I make the opportunity, right? Like that's part of it. It's fascinating. So recently, I'll share a story with you guys. So one of the things I'm doing is I'm focused right now on building my business, right? Connecting with more people, right? Getting known by more people so that they like me, they like my company or brand, and have enough trust to work with us, right? I'm spending a lot of time doing that, and I recently was working with a coach, a messaging coach. And messaging is all about, hey, how do you tell a story succinctly in the context in a marketing environment, right? And so the exercise that she took me through consisted of making 3 lists, right? Make your heaven list. What is the, if the world was perfect, right? If it was utopia for you, what would be the ideal scenario? And if this is in the context of somebody, me communicating to someone that I'm marketing my service to, right? That's the first list. That's the heaven list. Second, right? What is the hell list, right? If you don't, use my service, or if you don't do this, what is the worst possible outcome? And then the third one is the excuses, right? What are all the things that you're letting get in the way of your success, right? And so you could apply that same exercise and say, okay, what is the most positive outcome that I could have if I develop my networking and communication skills? Cool. You'll come up with 5, 6, 10 things. Then you'll come up with the hell list. What is the worst things that could happen if I don't do it, right? And you'll come up with the list. And then the more important one is the excuses, right? Not enough time. It's too hard. I don't know the right people, right? Just go down the list. We are very good at coming up with excuses. It's when we move beyond those, right? And we challenge ourselves not to be bound by those, is that we start to achieve breakthroughs. So you say it's hard. It's only hard to the extent that you make it so. So it's a challenge to you, Wadis. Go think about it. Spend 20 minutes. Make those 3 lists. And I think you'll leave that exercise with a new insight. And you'll be like, you know what? These are all excuses that I know I can overcome. I know you can do it. I've done it. I've done the exercise myself.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm trying right now. I mean, coming from where I was earlier in my military career, my sergeant major told me, I don't give a damn if you like him or not. You just have to go work with him, and at the end of the day, just go to a different bar. I say, okay, gotcha. And nowadays, like, you better get along with them. If not, you may lose your position really quick.
So I'll share another insight. So I was in the military myself. I spent 8.5 years, half of the time active duty, half in the National Guard. So I can relate to a lot of your backstory, and I learned a lot, and a lot of my presentation comes from leadership skills, etc., that I got out of the military. And so, I'm sure there's a lot that you got from your experience there that you can put into action. And again, it's take those nuggets and just, build on them. Take that foundation and build on it. Anyone else? I hope you guys got value. Oh, please, go ahead.
In regards to just the day-to-day type of things, well, I'm wondering how well this advice with that whole picking up a book, like reading the book, I'm wondering, instead of doing that, instead of looking at those things to improve yourself, I'm wondering if it's better off to do things that cost a little bit less in the term of time and cost, like, instead of reading a book on doing interview, like watch several videos and or read just tutorials online. And then on the case of those video tutorials, since I'm a fast listener, I can just watch them at double speed, things of that nature. That's just my perspective on those types of things, and I'm wondering if you would agree or disagree with that.
I agree 100%. I think that we should consume knowledge and information in the way that serves us best, right? So if reading books is not what serves you best, then don't do that, right? Find the mode of delivery or the right media that works best for you. Some people learn better by doing, right? Getting their hands dirty.
So practicing an interview with your friends and stuff, something like that, that would probably be superior than just reading a book every night for like a few hours for like a week or so.
Yeah, why not?
Keep that in mind. Thank you. I appreciate your advice given throughout this entire day.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much. Thank you for your questions. Like I said at the beginning, I don't get paid to do this. I do love coming and doing this. I get a lot out of being here, out of talking to you guys, listening to your questions, reflecting on it. It's a way for me to pay it back, pay it forward. I wish a lot of this was shared with me back when I was where you're at. And so thank you for the questions. Thank you for sitting through it, even though I know Ken, wouldn't have it any other way. And honestly, if any of you want to connect with me, have more questions, maybe you're a little shy to ask something here in an open context and want to, talk to me one-on-one or an email, my door's open. You'll have the presentation slides and my contact is there. There's the Slack group as well. Yeah, happy to follow up with any of you as needed. And I think that's it, Ken. I don't have anything else. Can wrap
All right,
it up.
thank you then. And thank you everyone for coming, and we'll move on to next week.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Have a great weekend.
Yep.
Bye.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
your
so much.
presentation.